Sometimes I grow weary of the days with all their fits and starts. I want to climb some old grey mountain, slowly, taking the rest of my lifetime to do it, resting often, sleeping under the pines or above them on the unclothed rocks. I want to see how many stars are still in the sky that we have smothered for years now, a century at least. I want to look back at everything, forgiving it all, and peaceful, knowing the last thing there is to know. All that urgency, not what the earth is about, how silent the trees, their poetry being of themselves only. I want to take slow steps and think appropriate thoughts. In 10,000 years, maybe, a piece of the mountain will fall.
The Appalachian Mountains, encompassing parts of 13 states on the East Coast. It has been the home of 26.6 million people as of 2023, and in the heart of it all is West Virginia. These mountains are not just home to us. They encompass one of the most diverse temperate forests in the world, and they're under attack. Appalachia is known for its extensive carbon-rich geology. Because of this, coal has been the forefront of the economic industry, especially in West Virginia. Now, coal isn't something new to our state. It's been here much longer than you or I, our parents, our grandparents, and their parents before them. Now, whether or not you agree on the environmental and humanitarian ethics of coal mining, there are two things we need to agree on. Coal mining and other forms of natural resource extraction generate revenue and economy in Appalachian states. And two, the world runs on coal. So how do we get it? The simple answer is mining, going deep underground to expose coal seams and mine them. However, that is beginning to change. To mining companies, it is less effective, more dangerous, and more expensive. Which brings us to a new wave of mining, mountaintop removal. Here's how it works. First, the land needs to be cleared. Trees and native vegetation are removed and the trees are sold to timber companies. Next, they remove the topsoil. Companies will either save the topsoil on site or move it to cover a pre-existing site as a form of reclamation. They then have to prepare the area for the dragline, a 20-story tall drill. They pre-strip the land by removing soil with shovel loaders and trucks. Then, they need to build access roads to the mining site. The process of pre-stripping is continuous as they move throughout the mountain. After the land is pre-stripped, the subsoil and rock are exposed. This is called the overburden. They then drill, blast, and remove the overburden from the site. This process can remove hundreds of feet from the tops of mountains. By removing the overburden, the coal seams are splintered and become exposed. What do you do with the hundreds of feet of rock that's been mined? Some companies, if they have the money, will compact the overburden and use it to fill the mined site, but most of it gets dumped. They fill the heads of haulers with excess overburden. These are called valley fills. They introduce acid mine drainage, heavy metals, and chemicals into streams and groundwater that affects everyone who calls the valley home. Today, coal mining is no longer West Virginia's biggest industry, nor is it the biggest industry in any of the Appalachian states. West Virginia's first economy was not focused on coal. Legislatures believed that because of West Virginia's vast natural resources, beautiful landscapes, and potential for growth, that it would soon become a booming state. This didn't happen. During the 1880s and 1890s, the legal system was situated to protect the citizens of West Virginia over the corporations who operated there. The West Virginia Tax Commission released their 1884 report on state development. They realized that the state did not grow the way they expected to. By focusing on protecting the people, they realized that industrial growth was hindered. Why work in a state with more regulations on your company when you can exploit the land somewhere else with less regulations? In 1889 and 1890, the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals aimed to keep industry within the state. They elected new judges who focused on industry rather than local agriculture, which was the main economy within the state at that time. To get companies to stay, the state government offered subsidies and tax breaks to companies in exchange for their businesses and infrastructure. This was a shift of focus off the West Virginian people and onto the natural resource industry. This created the single industry economy that West Virginia is known for, as a hope of pushing West Virginia as an industrial state. Legislatures refused to focus on diversifying the economy. No idea was suggested to answer the question, what happens after coal? The lack of diversification allowed for natural resource companies to essentially have free reign within the state. Regulations went unsupervised, which made it impossible to regain control over the industries. Coal industry companies realized they have more success when they bought politicians, and politicians realized they get elected when they are bought out. This solidified the power structure between politicians and natural resource industries. The prosperity and revenue from these industries only benefits themselves. It did not and does not promote long-term growth within the state. Shirley Stewart Burns describes this as a peripheral relationship. Southern West Virginia serves as a peripheral region, an area with a small population and a small amount of power that serves larger populated areas with more economic and political power. This can be a peripheral region to a large city like Washington, D.C., but can also be a peripheral region to its own state. I live in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, an area that has been growing exponentially in population. Part of it is our close relation to Maryland, Virginia, and DC, but it is undeniable that our growth is also a factor of our privilege to not rely on coal mining, which is focused in the southern part of the state with lower populations and poorer communities. One of the main ways the governments guarantee reclamation is through reclamation bonds. This is a surety bond that guarantees land distributed by mining will be restored to an environmentally safe condition after operations are finished. West Virginia uses self-bonds, which limit the restrictions placed on the bonds. These are legally binding corporate promises that do not require collateral or surety. There are, however, certain financial tests a company must undergo to apply for a self-bond. The Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act was established to fix environmental impacts and financial impacts that came from the remediation of abandoned surface mining sites. Mine operators would destroy the land, take the money from coal sales, and leave the area. Bankruptcy also allowed for mine operators to avoid reclamation costs. This left the government to deal with the impacts and unsafe conditions of the sites. These abandoned sites pollute streams and rivers with acid mine drainage. Governments do not have the money to fix these sites and reclaim them. The surety bonds are supposed to be enough to cover the costs of reclamation in the event of bankruptcy. Because of the coal industry's influence on the legislature, most governments use alternative bonding or self-bonding to limit the amount of collateral that is paid to the government. In West Virginia, this looks like two trust funds, the Special Reclamation Trust Fund and the Special Reclamation Water Trust Fund. How these trust funds are funded is they tax each ton of clean coal mined. How much, you might ask? 27.9 cents. A little over a quarter. And this is still the amount that is taxed today. Today, a short ton of coal costs around $81. Per the United States Energy Information Administration, within the second quarter of 2025, West Virginia mined 10.88 million short tons of coal. So within the second quarter of 2025, coal industries made $881,280,000. The amount that coal industries paid to West Virginia was $2,937,000. That's a profit of $878,343,000, or so you would think. Because not only are coal companies only paying 27.9 cents, that money is capped at $5,000 per acre. Let's take a trip back in time. With the 1970s came the Energy Crisis and Clean Air Act. This is also when West Virginia was fully considered an industry state. In 1971, coal appraisals were required but unregulated. Appraisers would assess coal within 50% to 100% of its value. In 1972, a study was conducted that showed that every governor up until 1972 had some form of ties to the coal industry as an owner, CEO, or lobbyist. SIMCRA also required operators to restore the land to its original topography and pre-mined quality. This obviously didn't happen.
This is it. This is hydroseed, and they spray the mountains with this, and then everything grows back. Everything's fine. It's magical pixie dust. It feels like mulched toilet paper, dyed green. And there's little seeds in it, I think. I can't even tell.
In 1980, the severance tax became law. Severance tax is a tax on non-renewable natural resource extraction. In 1985, Governor Moore introduced super tax breaks in hopes of fixing West Virginia's crashing economy. This caused the state to lose $600,000 in taxes. By 1989, this number grows to $48.2 million. During Governor Cecil Underwood's terms from 1997 to 2001, he dismissed lawsuits against coal companies, who owed more than $400 million in workers' compensation. By 2001, 89,446 families in West Virginia were put on food stamps because of mountaintop removal's effect on unemployment rates. By 2006, 70% of U.S. coal was produced at surface strip mines. In 2008, the top 5 U.S. coal companies spent $9.95 million in lobbying. In 2013, the WVDEP was responsible for 192 forfeited mine sites. This reclamation would cost $35.5 million to treat and $6.7 million annually to upkeep. The 2017 predicted costs for reclamation were $2,700 per acre for surface operations, $12,400 per acre for underground operations, and $7,300 per acre for preparation plants and haul roads. Also in 2017, the West Virginia government approved $375 million in unsecured bonds from Alpha Natural Resources. They later promised $186 million after their bankruptcy, but those bonds were never posted. By then, 294,243.35 acres of land in West Virginia were coal mines stretching across 34 of the 55 counties. 192,000 acres were concentrated just in Boone, Logan, Mingo, and Kanawha counties. In 2023, coal mining is only a top industry in West Virginia. However, it was surpassed by casino hotels and hospitals. Walmart is the biggest employer in every state in Appalachia except for Maryland and New York. So how do we fix this economy? First, getting rid of the coal industry is impossible. So instead of looking at ways to replace it, we need to fix the rules surrounding it and strictly enforce regulations on bonds, specifically completely eliminating the use of self-bonds. We need to increase the trust fund taxes to reflect the inflation of reclamation costs. The capping of taxes needs to be removed and full cost bonding needs to be implemented. The trust funds need to be increased, as these funds are supposed to cover not only current reclamation projects, but future ones as well. Laws need to be reevaluated that allow coal companies to buy lands near vulnerable communities. On a large scale, the economy of West Virginia needs more diversity. While coal isn't the biggest industry in the state anymore, there is still not a major industry that generates economy in West Virginia like coal did. You can promote these efforts in 4 simple ways. 1. Educate yourselves. There are so many resources out there about political economies, mountaintop removal, and West Virginia's history with coal. With just a simple Google search, you can pull up information about the history of coal mining within your area. 2. Talk about it. It is so common to feel like you as an individual cannot do enough, but by sharing information, you can educate others and spread awareness. This can be as simple as having a conversation or posting a tweet, Instagram post, or TikTok. 3. Talk with your legislatures. Write to them about local problems, state problems, and national problems. Urge them to consider adopting policies that actually better the people within your state. And 4. Vote. Vote for officials you want to push against coal lobbyists and do what is right for the West Virginia and Appalachian people. It is so incredibly easy to research politicians from your state and find their policies and agendas. I will leave you with my favorite quote from West Virginia-born conservationist Larry Gibson. "Love 'em or leave 'em, just don't destroy 'em."